A giant squid off the US coast, unidentified creatures, the largest sea sponge in the world, and a mystery we've covered on the channel before has finally been solved. This is underwater footage that shows something unusual. Imagine being 100 miles off the coast of New Orleans, staring at a monitor in the middle of a lightning storm when a huge tentacled beast suddenly appears on the screen. Well, that's what happened to a team of researchers when they captured the first ever footage of a giant squid in US waters. They weren't using a typical loud, bright submarine. Instead, they used a stealth camera called the Medusa. It uses a fake glowing jellyfish lure to trick deep-sea predators into thinking that there's a snack nearby. Out in the pitch black, a 12-foot squid showed up, its tentacles slowly tracking the light before it lunged. The reaction on the boat was pure chaos. Researcher Nathan Robinson described the moment the creature materialized, saying, "It's got these long, spindly arms. It just looks like it's from another world." When the realization hit that they'd actually found it, the lab erupted. Eddie Witter, one of the lead scientists, recalled the moment they first saw it, saying, "We were all screaming. Other people were coming into the room and they were like, 'What's going on?' We're like, 'Look.'" Zunke Johnson, the expedition's leader, said, "It's one thing to see a specimen in a jar, it's another thing to see it actually living." Remember that mysterious golden orb discovered by NOAA, or the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that.
I don't know what to think about this.
Well, just the other day, NOAA posted an update. So considering we've talked about this on the channel before, I figured that I would share that update with you. But first, if you need some refreshing, back in 2023, a team from NOAA was exploring the ocean floor off Alaska. The robot camera drifted over this rocky area and suddenly they spotted this strange golden orb thingy. It looked smooth, shiny, almost like metal, and it even had a small hole in it. One of the scientists said it's got a big hole in it, something either tried to get in or tried to get out. People watching the live stream started throwing out ideas. Maybe it was an egg, maybe some kind of deep sea sponge, or something completely unknown. They carefully scooped it up, brought it back to the lab. At first, the usual tests didn't really help. DNA results were messy. The structure didn't look like a normal animal, and it didn't clearly match anything they already knew. But almost 3 years later, after way deeper testing, they finally figured it out. It was actually a leftover piece of a giant deep-sea anemone called Relicanthus daphne, basically part of the base that used to anchor the animal to the rock. So it's a weird chunk of sea creature skin, for lack of a better word. But there we go. Mystery solved. In September 2025, a group of scientists led by Chris Thompson went out to explore the waters around Vanuatu, a chain of islands in the South Pacific, northeast of Australia. These waters are some of the least explored on Earth. The goal of the trip wasn't just to look around. They're trying to help the country protect about 30% of its ocean, so they need a real footage of what's actually living down there. They spent about a month out there, using over 200 cameras, doing 285 dives, and even going down in a submersible, and the deeper they went, the stranger the animals got. Near the northern islands, they filmed things like a prickly shark, a 2-spot red snapper, and a 6-gill stingray. These aren't things that you normally see on camera. Then they explored an underwater volcano called Kuwe Volcano. It's basically a sunken crater with warm water coming out of it, which attracts different kinds of marine life. That's where they caught some of the most unusual footage. Here, our cameras captured the prehistoric-looking Vanuatu nautilus, a huge oilfish, and blunt-nosed 6-gill sharks, and the elusive love heart squid, one researcher said. And they kept finding more the deeper they went. At around 1,000 meters down, where there's no sunlight at all, they filmed king crabs, deep-sea shrimp, and a bunch of strange eel species like duck-billed eels. The whole reason they're doing this is to figure out what's actually down there before making decisions about protecting it. In their own words, by collaborating with local scientists and communities, we aim to fill critical data gaps and provide a scientific foundation for future conservation efforts, ensuring the vibrant life of these waters thrives for generations to come. Now, look how adorable this little creature is. What exactly is it though? Well, it's a brand new species. Last year, researchers from Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute were exploring deep parts of the ocean off the California coast using remotely operated vehicles. While reviewing the footage, they came across a small, strange-looking fish hovering just above the sea floor. The fish had this soft, almost see-through body with no scales. It looked fragile. Down there, the pressure is extreme, so instead of being rigid Animals like this are more flexible, which helps them avoid being crushed. They ended up identifying it as a new species and gave it the name Bumpy Snailfish, mainly because of these small bumps across its body. One of the researchers explained that snailfish are actually, quote, among the most abundant and diverse vertebrates in the deep sea, which is kind of surprising considering most people have never even heard of them. This bizarre-looking creature was nicknamed the Mystery Mollusk, but researchers have recently gained a better understanding of what it actually is. Researchers again from Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute had been seeing the same strange animal pop up in their deep sea footage for years, starting back in 2000. It didn't match anything they recognized, so they just kept recording it whenever their underwater robots came across it. Over time, they logged more than 150 sightings, all in the deep waters off California. What stood out right away is that it didn't behave like a normal sea slug. Most of them stay on the seafloor, but this one was swimming freely in open water. It moved slowly, almost drifting, and had a large hood-like structure that it used to catch food instead of scraping surfaces like other slugs. And when disturbed, it could produce a faint blue glow, which researchers believe helps distract predators. After years of collecting footage and samples, they finally confirmed it was a completely new species, now called Bathydevius caudactylus. And as MBARI researcher Bruce Robinson said, we spent more than 20 years trying to understand this animal. In 2022, researchers dropped cameras down into deep ocean trenches off the coast of Japan, about 9,100 meters deep. That's basically the extreme edge of what we've ever managed to explore in the ocean, but all the way down there, they spotted something floating through the darkness. It was pale, soft-looking, kind of ghostly. At first, the team thought it might be a type of sea slug, since it had a body that looked split in two sides and some thin antenna-like parts that reminded them of sea slugs, but other researchers pushed back on that. Others said it kind of looked like a mollusk, but couldn't confidently place it anywhere beyond that. So for now, they gave it a placeholder name, Anomalies incerta sedis, which basically just means they have no idea where it fits. Even stranger is how deep this creature was found. At over 9,100 meters, it's far deeper than where similar animals have ever been recorded. In 2025, researchers working off Antarctica dropped baited cameras down in the Southern Ocean, around 490 meters deep, near the South Shetland Islands. The goal was to see what actually shows up in waters this cold and remote, and what they got on camera was not expected at all. A large shark comes into view, slowly moving across the seabed. It was a sleeper shark from a group that usually lives in deep, cold oceans, but not one that scientists have seen in Antarctic waters. One of the team members, Alan Jameson, said, "We went down there not expecting to see sharks because there's a general rule of thumb that you don't get sharks in Antarctica," end quote. Well, they saw a big one. This thing was the size of a small car. This is now one of the clearest recordings of a sleeper shark in that part of the Southern Ocean. In 2015, researchers from NOAA were exploring a protected stretch of ocean off Hawaii. They were using an ROV to scan the seafloor at around 1,200 meters or 3,900 feet deep. While going through the footage, they spotted something that didn't look like a normal animal at all. It was a massive sea sponge sitting on the ocean floor, rising out of the rock like a giant uneven mound. When they measured it using lasers on the camera system, it came out to about 3.5 meters or 11.5 feet long, 2 meters or 6.5 feet tall, and about 1.5 meters or 5 feet wide. So basically, it was the size of a small van sitting on the ocean floor. One of the scientists reacting said, "Oh my goodness, where did this guy come from?" It was identified as a glass sponge. That just means its body is made of silica, the same material as glass, but shaped into a soft, living structure. It survives by filtering tiny particles out of the water constantly. What makes it more interesting is how long things like this can live. Some deep-sea sponges grow extremely slowly, and scientists think similar species can survive for thousands of years, just sitting in one spot on the seafloor. They didn't remove it or disturb it, they just recorded it where it was and moved on. It ended up being the largest sponge ever documented. In early 2026, a deep-sea expedition off the coast of Argentina was scanning the ocean using a remotely operated vehicle. The team was exploring along the continental slope, going through depths where sunlight doesn't reach, and most of what you see is just black water and drifting particles. But the camera picked up a lot more than that, a giant jellyfish. It was identified as a giant phantom jelly. It's really rare to see these things. They live way down below the surface usually between 1,000 to 4,000 meters or 3,300 to 13,000 feet down, depending on the area. This one was filmed at roughly 820 feet, which is usually shallow for the species, and it was massive. Its bell can reach just over 3 feet across and has 4 long arms that can stretch up to 33 feet. Instead of stinging tentacles like most jellyfish, it uses those arms to trap small animals and pull them in. One of the expedition's chief scientists described the reaction on board as a, quote, mixture of excitement and disbelief, end quote. And I get it. I mean, this footage, this goes for everything on this list, by the way. I'd love to just sit back and watch all this in VR. That'd be nuts. But with all that said, I've been your host, James, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, next time.